I've shared this before, but another time when I preached on Ascension, but I thought it was worth repeating. So, I've been inspired by many different people throughout my life as far as, my faith and learning about my faith. And especially, I've been inspired by a number of different priests, and especially during my seminary days. And there was one in particular by the name of Father George Krieger, and he was a Jesuit. And he taught my homiletics classes in the seminary. And I still remember, his Ascension homily in that particular year where I was there at the seminary. And it continued to kind of stick out in my mind. And I remember he began, his homily by, talking about the Ascension, the Ascension of our Lord. And he said, I don't care if the Lord was carried off on a cloud, I don't care if two men, angels, grabbed him by the shoulders and carried him off. I don't care if somehow he just kind of disappeared. He says, I don't care, and he does this in his southern accent. He says, I don't care if he drove off on a Harley-Davidson motorcycle. He said, today the Ascension is about the glorification. Now, mind you, he was a deep southern man, okay? It was about the glorification of Jesus. The only guy I know could make Jesus' name a 3-syllable word. All right? But he drove that into our heads. It's about the glorification of Jesus. And I think about that in my own reflection, and what does that mean for me? What does that mean in my ministry? This moment, this glorification of Jesus. I guess I kind of start to look at it in terms of, something that was explained to me many, many years ago, in that, there's a horizontal relationship we have with God, and there's a vertical relationship that we have with God. And of course, that horizontal, is all about that relationship we have with the God-man, Jesus, that God humbled himself. He became incarnate. He became one of us. He walked with us, for many different reasons. But I think on that horizontal level, it enabled us to get to know God on our level. It pointed out to us that God wasn't so much out there and up there as much as God you can know God right here where we walk. And I think that's so important. But the Ascension also brings it to that vertical, where it points to the fact that this God-man is God. He's more than just man. He is equally God. And I think that's just so important because sometimes we kind of lose that little faith, or maybe we have that little doubt and we don't always understand. But Jesus, in this moment of the Ascension, took his place at the right hand of God. And that he truly was God. So the man that we get to know, the person that we get to know in the horizontal is God. We can have that personal relationship. We can have that special moment. And I think sometimes it's hard because it still seems so far out there. Now, I don't know if you remember the Holy Land pilgrimage, if any of you participated in that, but towards the end of it, Father Dave showed a picture of the rock, the particular rock that's there in Jerusalem, at the top of the Mount of Olives that we believe that Jesus stood on, as he ascended into heaven. And I remember being there, and I remember taking my hand and touching that rock and just thinking to myself, he stood here. Of course, there's some footprints it looks like in the stone. I'm thinking, boy, Jesus had some big feet, But, I remember touching that rock, and it reminded me that he's real. That this isn't just a story. That this isn't something that was just made up, but that he's real. And I think that's just always been so important for me to always connect back to those signs that we have on the horizontal that help continue to point us, to the vertical. to realize that, he is real. But, I think a lot of times what we try to do is we try to spend a lot of time debating or discussing, the philosophical implications of the ascension or the theological, implications of it, or the eschatological, things with it, or, anything like that. We try to get into this big discussion about, what it was, what happened, what does it mean? But if you listen to this reading, or even any of the other Gospels that talk about the ascension, there's not a whole lot of time spent on he went up. I mean, really, the message that is driven into us is that Jesus is taken up, but what did he say in the beginning, especially in this gospel? He said, you know what? Go. Go out and do something. Go out and live a certain way. Go out and spread my message. Go out and be my disciples. Be now Christ to others. I mean, he did. He said, go. Go out and do it. And I think when it comes to the ascension for me, I do want to connect up. But more importantly, I want to be pushed just a little bit more. I want to be pushed just a little bit more to go out there and to do what he's asked me to do, to bring the good news. Now, I read this line this week, and I really loved it, and it's really stuck with me. And it said, you could be the only gospel that someone hears today. You could be the only gospel that someone hears today. I remember reading that and just thinking about, wow, that's a pretty big task to take on, that I have to be the good news, that I have to bring Jesus to others. But in this message of the ascension, that's exactly what he's asking us to do. He's saying, we bring Christ to others. I mean, that is what our message, or that is what our mission is all about. And how do we do that? My son Luke's back there right now, and Luke is coaching an 8th grade or a 7th grade baseball team right now, and guess who his assistant coach is? Guess what our record is? No, we won't talk about that. We're having fun, all right? But one of the things that is kind of come out of this, and, he's a pretty positive kid, and he's trying to be that positive coach and so forth, is that he wants those players to reflect who they are, to reflect, their school, to reflect their pride. And although we lost 15-1 and 17-4 the other day, okay, all right, I mean, the message at the end of the game was, you still be proud. You be proud to be an Eagle. You be proud to be from Linden. You be proud, to be that Linden baseball player, and he pumped them up and, did the 1, 2, 3, go Eagles, That's a good thing. But that's sort of the same thing that Christ is telling us to do right now. Is to be proud of who we are and to go out there and reflect that to others, because that is what it means, to be a disciple, to reflect Christ, to be Christ here on earth. That's a tough challenge, I know. But do you just want to be those that sit here and, as I always say, check the box each week? Or do you really want to go out there and be the gospel that someone might hear today? The only gospel that they might hear today. We've been celebrating marriages this weekend, and we have, a handful today, and in just a minute, I'm going to put them on the spot, and I'm going to walk around with a microphone. I'm going to ask them to share with us what makes it work, okay? What makes it work for so many years, all right? And, John and Sue, I'm going to get you, so don't worry. I'm going to come to you, put you on the spot, so just think about that. But, I always think about, some of the different things that Christ has left us with, to come in contact with him, to make our experience of Christ real. And those are the sacraments. The sacraments are these experiences in our life that bring us closer to God, to give us a true experience of it. But in what happens after that is that we reflect back and we reflect out. After that experience of that sacrament, we reflect Christ to others. And I love as a deacon that I have the opportunity to, as a minister of the church, to witness marriages. And one of the most beautiful moments for me is when I get an opportunity to invoke a blessing upon them. And we call it the nuptial blessing. You know, and there's words in it, and it's like, it goes like this: is, Lord, grant that as they begin to live the sacrament, they may share with each other the gifts of your love and become one in hearts and mind as witnesses to your presence in the world. Now, that's a Christian marriage. It's not just a piece of paper, but it is something that you take on a challenge. That in this marriage, in this sacrament, we're going to reflect Christ to the world. People are going to see in this sacramental relationship that Christ is real and Christ is present. I know that's a daunting task. It really is. But as this Ascension Day goes, and this Ascension message goes, I mean, he didn't say, sit here. I mean, think about it. The men, what were they doing? Looking up in the sky, wondering and scratching their heads and saying, what do we do now? And the men said, what? Go. Go and do something. Go and bring Christ to others. That's your commission. That's your message. That's your responsibility. That's what you're called to do. St. Teresa of Avila lived in the 1500s. We're talking, 1,500 years, almost 1,400 and some years after Christ. And, she had a beautiful prayer, a beautiful poem that she wrote about what our responsibility is. I just want to read this to you. She said, Christ has no body but yours. No hands, no feet on earth but yours. Yours are the feet with which he walks to do good. Yours are the hands with which he blesses all the world. Yours are the eyes with which he looks and sees compassion in this world. Christ has no body now on earth but yours. We're his presence. We're his presence here. We're his hands, his feet, his eyes. I mean, that's what he's called us to do. In everything that we are, in everything that we do, in everything that we say. We are his hands, his feet, his eyes. So think about that. In all that we do, we are and say, we might be the only gospel that someone hears today. We might be the only gospel that someone hears today. So I'm going to walk around with a microphone. And I just want